Most people think TSA is just about rules and long lines, but a lot of what actually happens at the checkpoint comes down to little details nobody explains until you get pulled aside. In this video, we're breaking down 10 TSA secrets. Not conspiracy stuff, just real practical things. Frequent flyers learn the hard way. What triggers bag checks, why procedures change by airport, and how to move through security with less stress. Policies can vary by lane and equipment, so think of this as a smart travel checklist you can actually use the next time you fly. Number 1. The X-ray wants a clean picture. Most people think TSA is judging them as a person. Half the time, the first thing judging you is an image of your bag on a screen. Airport security is basically a visibility game. Can the officer clearly see what each object is, and can they rule out anything dangerous quickly? When your carry-on looks like a stuffed junk drawer, the X-ray turns into one big gray blob, and a gray blob gets pulled. Not because you look suspicious, but because the picture is messy. Dense stuff is the biggest troublemaker. Big stacks of food, thick books, heavy chargers, camera gear, and a tangled nest of cables can block the view of what's underneath. TSA even warns that foods, powders, and other items that clutter bags may be asked to come out for separate screening. So when people say, "I didn't do anything wrong," and they still searched my bag, a lot of the time the bag just looked like chaos on the scanner. The boring secret that makes you look like a seasoned traveler is to pack like you're helping the X-ray do its job. Keep your clutter items together near the top. Snacks, powders, toiletry bag, and small electronics. Put cables in one pouch so they don't look like a spider web. If you're carrying anything powder-like, protein powder, baby powder, powder makeup, treat it like a known delay and make it easy to pull out. If you're bringing a big block of food, don't bury it in the middle of your bag like you're hiding treasure. Give it its own corner so the officer can see it clearly. And don't treat the signs like a universal law of physics. Some airports have newer scanners, some don't. Some lanes ask you to leave laptops in, some want them out. Some want your bagged liquids out, some don't. The fastest travelers aren't the ones who memorize one perfect routine. They're the ones who can adapt in 5 seconds without getting annoyed. One more tiny move that saves time. When an officer asks you to remove something, don't start arguing about the definition of the object. Just do it. If they can see it, they can clear it, and you get your bag back faster. The whole checkpoint works better when your bag looks simple on the screen. And here's the mindset shift that keeps you sane. TSA isn't trying to win an argument with you. They're trying to clear an image. The fastest way through security is usually not talk better. It's pack smarter. Number 2, shoes off ended, but maybe take them off still exists. For almost 2 decades, the shoes thing felt like a permanent ritual. Then in July 2025, the Department of Homeland Security announced it was ending the nationwide shoes-off travel policy at TSA checkpoints. That means the default for most passengers is now. Keep your shoes on. A lot of people still don't realize this changed, so they woke up already halfway undressed, juggling shoes, belt, jacket, and dignity. Here's the part they don't put on a giant sign. Policy ended doesn't mean shoes will never come off again. If something alarms, if you're selected for additional screening, or if a particular situation calls for it, you might still be asked to remove shoes. Think of it like this. They stopped making everyone do it automatically, but they didn't delete it from the toolbox. So your move is simple. Don't do the old reflex of stripping down like you're entering a locker room. Listen to what the officer actually asks for in that lane, at that airport, on that day. If they say shoes stay on, keep them on and keep moving. If they say shoes off, fine, but do it fast and put them right back on the second you're cleared. This change has a quiet benefit nobody talks about. Fewer loose items in bins means fewer things left behind. The less you take off, the fewer chances you have to forget something expensive. And if you're thinking, wait, then why do people still care about PreCheck? It's because shoes were only one part of the old routine. Even with shoes staying on, there are still differences in how much you pull out of your bag, how often your bag gets searched, and how predictable the process feels, which brings us straight into the next one. Number 3, the liquids rule is strict, but the exceptions are real. People love to chant 3-1-1 like it's a spell, but the rule is simple. Liquids, gels, and aerosols in carry-on are limited to containers that are 3.4 ounces, 100 milliliters, or less, and they're supposed to fit in 1 quart-size, clear, resealable bag. And yes, it's about the container size. A half-empty 6-ounce bottle is still a 6-ounce bottle. The officer isn't measuring the remaining amount like a bartender. They're reading the label. Now, the part that actually helps you. There are legit exceptions, and you're allowed to use them. TSA's travel guidance says liquid medication is allowed in carry-on in excess of 3.4 ounces in reasonable quantities for the flight. For families, the baby stuff is a major exception. Formula, breast milk, toddler drinks, and baby food can be carried in quantities greater than 3.4 ounces and don't need to fit inside the quart-size bag. That's not a loophole. That's policy. The way to avoid drama is to separate those items and say what they are before your bag gets searched. You don't need a speech, just, "These are medically necessary liquids," or "This is baby formula." Then let them screen it the way they're required to. Acting nervous and trying to hide it is what turns a normal situation into a long one. One more thing, most people learn the hard way. The liquids rule includes stuff you do not emotionally classify as liquid. Peanut butter and hummus are both treated like liquids or gels for carry-on purposes, meaning the 3.4 ounce limit applies. If it spreads, smears, pours, or squishes, assume it's going to get treated like a liquid at the checkpoint. Yogurt, creamy dips, big jars of honey, chunky sauces, same vibe. It's not a moral judgment, it's a screening category. And if you're traveling with ice packs or frozen items, TSA's guidance is basically, frozen liquid items are allowed if they're frozen solid when presented. But if they're slushy or partially melted, they fall back under the liquids rule. So if you're using an ice pack for food, or for medical reasons, you want it rock solid when you hit security, not half melted like a sad snow cone. Number 4, PreCheck is about predictability, not immunity. TSA PreCheck gets marketed like a VIP pass, and it kind of is, but not in the way people imagine. The real benefit is consistency. In many PreCheck lanes, you typically don't need to remove shoes, laptops, your 3-1-1 liquids bag, belts, or light jackets. That smoother routine is why frequent flyers love it. Fewer steps, fewer chances to mess up, and usually a faster line. But here's the secret. PreCheck doesn't make you untouchable. You can still be sent to standard screening. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes it's because the PreCheck lane is closed or overloaded. Sometimes it's because your boarding pass didn't pull your PreCheck status correctly. And if you get selected for enhanced screening, you're not going to talk your way back into easy mode. So the most experienced travelers do 2 things at the same time. They use PreCheck, and they still pack like they might get regular screening. They don't put a giant laptop under 10 layers of clothing, because I have PreCheck. They keep their bag clean and simple because it works everywhere. Also, quick reality check. If your boarding pass doesn't show PreCheck, arguing at the podium won't magically switch it on. The fix is usually upstream. Make sure your known traveler number is in your airline profile, and confirm your name and date of birth match exactly across your ticket and your PreCheck enrollment. People lose PreCheck for silly reasons, like using a nickname on the ticket and a full name on the enrollment, or flipping the order of a middle name. The system is picky, not personal. The other quiet PreCheck secret is that it's also about your pace. If you move smoothly, you don't just help yourself, you help the line. PreCheck is built for people who can do the routine without turning the checkpoint into a 5-minute unpacking session. So if you want the fast lane to stay fast, you behave like you belong there. Prepared, simple, and not surprised by basic security steps. Number 5. SSSS is a system flag, not a personal grudge. If you ever see SSSS printed on a boarding pass, you feel it in your stomach. Those 4 letters stand for Secondary Security Screening Selection, and they mean you should expect extra screening before you fly. You might get a more detailed bag search, additional checks, and more waiting around. The mistake people make is turning it into a personal story. The airline hates me. TSA has me on a list. I'm definitely in trouble. In reality, travel experts explain that SSS is tied to DHS, TSA screening systems, and the criteria for selection aren't publicly explained in detail. Sometimes it can be random. Sometimes it can be triggered by patterns that look unusual in the system. Either way, the officer at the gate didn't wake up thinking, "I'm going to ruin this one person's day." If you get SSS, the best move is to be boring and early. Show up earlier than you normally would, because the process can add time. Keep your carry-on tidy so a hand search doesn't turn into a 20-minute archaeology dig. Don't make jokes about weapons or explosives. Don't start filming people. Keep your answer simple if you're asked questions. Calm, normal behavior is the fastest path back to your seat. Another quiet trick: don't pack your bag like a puzzle box. If you know you're more likely to be screened, make it easy to inspect. Put electronics where they can be reached quickly. Keep powders and liquids together. Avoid repackaging things into mystery containers. People get slowed down because the screening turns into a guessing game. And if you get SSS over and over, there's an official channel most travelers never hear about: the DHS Traveler Redress Inquiry Program, called DHS Trip. It's designed for people who keep getting delayed, denied boarding, or repeatedly routed into extra screening. It's not a magic never again button, but it's the formal way to raise the issue and ask for a correction. The secret is simply that the system has paperwork, and paperwork is sometimes the only language it understands. Number 6, your ID problem just got more expensive in 2026. Real ID used to be one of those "I'll do it later" errands. Then May 7th, 2025 happened. Real ID enforcement began that day, and TSA says non-real ID state-issued licenses and IDs are no longer accepted for airport checkpoint identification. If you're 18 or older, you need a real ID compliant license or another acceptable form of ID, like a passport. Here's the 2026 twist. Starting February 1st, 2026, TSA is launching TSA Confirm ID, a fee-based identity verification option for travelers who show up without an acceptable ID and still want to try to fly. The fee is $45, and TSA makes a point that people don't like hearing. Even if you pay, there's no guarantee TSA can verify your identity, and if your identity can't be confirmed, you may not be allowed through the checkpoint. Confirm ID is also not a group payment situation where one person's receipt covers everyone. TSA's own guidance says each adult traveler without acceptable ID has to complete the process separately. It's basically built to stop people from treating it like a casual substitute for having ID. So treat it like an emergency exit, not a plan. The smartest secret is to make your ID routine automatic. Same pocket, every trip. Check it the night before, like you check your passport for an international flight. If you travel as a couple, don't assume the other person has your ID. That's how people show up at the airport with one wallet and 2 tickets. One detail that can save you in a pinch: TSA says it currently accepts certain expired IDs up to 2 years after expiration for the listed forms of identification. Helpful? Absolutely. A reason to push your luck? Not really. If you can renew, renew. If you can carry a passport card as a backup, even better. The whole goal is to avoid having your travel day depend on a special exception or a paid verification system. Number 7. You can ask for privacy and a witness during screening. Pat-downs are where a lot of people feel powerless, mostly because they don't know what they can request. TSA's own guidance says that at any time during screening, you may request private screening and have a witness of your choice present. If you want a private room, you can ask. If you want your travel partner to come with you as a witness, you can ask. That alone lowers stress for a lot of people, because it turns "this is happening to me" into "I have options." Another thing people don't realize: most travelers have the option to request a pat-down instead of going through the full body scanner. TSA calls it advanced imaging technology. If you choose not to be screened by the body scanner, the alternative is typically a pat-down. There are exceptions in certain enhanced screening cases, but in normal situations, you do have a choice. If you have a medical condition, a disability, or even just anxiety about screening, there's also a program many travelers don't know exists: TSA Cares. It's designed to help travelers understand the screening process and get assistance through the checkpoint. People hear about it and assume it's only for extreme cases, but it's really for anyone who needs extra help navigating screening without panic. The key is timing. Speak up before you step into the scanner or before screening starts. If you wait until you're already in the middle of it, it turns into confusion and delay. Also, a small social secret that works. Keep your tone calm and practical. "Can I do private screening, please?" goes a lot further than "this is illegal." If something feels off, ask for a supervisor. You're not trying to fight the system. You're trying to get through it in a way that's respectful and clear. Number 8, the conveyor belt is where valuables vanish in plain sight. The checkpoint is a perfect storm. People are stressed, bins are moving, and everyone is in a hurry. That's why the most common airport theft story isn't a dramatic crime scene. It's a phone sliding under a jacket in a bin, a ring rolling out of a tray, a wallet that got tossed in a bin and then grabbed by the wrong person by accident. The chaos is real, and the chaos makes mistakes easy. So the practical secret is to stop feeding the belt loose valuables. Put small items in a zippered pocket before you reach the front. If you have to empty your pockets, do it in one place and put everything into one bag or one pocket, not scattered across multiple bins. If you're traveling with a nice watch, consider putting it inside your carry-on until you're through the checkpoint, instead of leaving it exposed in a tray. Also, don't load your stuff into the bins too early. People send a laptop and phone down the belt, then they're still taking off a jacket, and now their valuables are sitting unattended at the scanner exit while they're stuck on the other side. Wait until you're actually ready to walk through and immediately collect your items. When you grab your stuff on the other side, don't step away from the belt until you have everything. People lose things because they move to a bench to get organized and forget one last bin behind them. If something does go missing, travelers confuse two different processes. For items left at the checkpoint, airports and TSA have lost and found procedures. For property that was lost or damaged during screening, TSA also provides a formal claims process and instructions for filing a claim. And a quick note about checked luggage. If you use a TSA-approved lock, understand what that really means. Those locks are designed so authorized security officers can open them with special tools during screening, instead of cutting your lock off. They're about preventing damage, not creating an impenetrable vault. So if you're checking anything truly irreplaceable, the real move is still to keep it with you. Number 9. Powders and spreadables are the quiet reason your bag gets pulled. If you want to predict whether your bag will get searched, don't think like a movie villain. Think like an X-ray operator. Powder-like substances are a known headache in screening. TSA's own guidance says powders over 12 ounces, 350 milliliters, in a carry-on may require additional screening, and for some items, they instruct travelers to place larger powders in a separate bin. That includes things like protein powder and powder makeup. It's not that powder is illegal, it's that powder looks like powder, and the checkpoint has to confirm what it is. If you show up with a big, unmarked container of white powder in your bag and act shocked that they want to look at it, you're basically choosing stress as your hobby. Then there are spreadables, which cause so many arguments because people don't see them as liquids. TSA's food guidance is blunt. Foods that are liquids, gels, or aerosols have to follow the 3D11 rule, and liquid or gel food items larger than 3.4 ounces aren't allowed in carry-on. Peanut butter and hummus are both listed with the 3.4 ounce limit. The rule doesn't care if it's a snack, it cares if it acts like a gel. This is where you can make your life easier without gaming anything. If you want to travel with big containers of powder or big tubs of spreadable food, put them in checked luggage if you can. If you need them in carry-on, keep them small, sealed, and easy to inspect. Don't repackage powder into an unmarked baggie unless you enjoy unnecessary questions. And remember the frozen detail. Frozen liquid items can go through if they're frozen solid when presented. If they're slushy, they fall under the liquids rule. So if your plan relies on, "it'll probably still be frozen," that's a gamble you're taking on a very tight schedule. The funniest part is that this secret is totally avoidable. Most checkpoint delays are not about danger. They're about confusion. If you remove confusion, you remove delay. Number 10, your face is becoming your ID, and you should know your options. Security is shifting from show your documents to prove you're you. TSA has described its facial comparison technology as a way to help confirm the traveler at the checkpoint matches the photo on the identification document. TSA is also expanding programs like TSA PreCheck Touchless ID, which uses a quick photo as part of a faster identity check in certain lanes for eligible travelers. Here's the part most people don't hear in the line. In many of these setups, the photo capture is optional. If you don't want your face scanned, you can ask for an alternative process. The trick is speaking up before the camera step happens, or before your ID is scanned into the system. If you wait until after the photo is taken, you've basically missed the moment. Also, touchless ID isn't something that randomly happens to you. It's opt-in, and it's tied to eligibility. The whole point is to reduce the show ID, hand over boarding pass, wait, repeat routine. But you're still expected to carry physical ID as a backup because technology isn't perfect and not every airport lane works the same way. This shift is accelerating. In late 2025, Apple announced Digital ID in Apple Wallet built from US passport information, with TSA acceptance rolling out in beta at more than 250 US airports for domestic travel identity verification. Translation: a lot more travelers are about to experience a checkpoint that feels more like a quick face check than a long paper shuffle. None of this removes the basic rules about what you can bring. It just changes the front-end experience. And the real secret is that staying relaxed is easier when you know what's happening. You're not being singled out. You're watching a system that's rapidly modernizing, one airport lane at a time.